Do you ever encounter those rare, quiet moments that manage to sneak up on you? The kind that don't announce their arrival with the explosion of fireworks or the loud fanfare of a trumpet, but instead they silently slip into the fabric of your life and fundamentally change everything you thought you knew. This happens to be one of those stories. My name is Emily, and I'm about to recount the journey of how a stubborn, floppy-eared dog transformed from what I thought might be a mistake into the most incredible adventure and greatest life lesson of my existence. Picture the scene. It was a sweltering, dusty summer afternoon in a small, sleepy town in Colorado. The mountains stood tall on the horizon, guarding the valley like silent, eternal sentinels. The heavy scent of dry hay and sun-baked wood thickened the air, mingling with that faint, unmistakable perfume of wild sagebrush. At 17, I was restless, convinced that nothing truly exciting would ever happen in my mundane life. I felt stuck in a repetitive routine of school, never-ending chores, and constant daydreams about distant, far-off places I'd only ever visited through books or television screens. On a total whim, my dad and I had wandered into an old farm auction. It was the kind of place where the very air buzzes with anticipation. You know the type. Farmers in worn, mud-caked boots spitting fiercely on the tires of rusty tractors, families haggling over the history of antique saddles and weathered tools, and the auctioneer's voice rising and falling in a strange, hypnotic, rhythmic chant that echoes across the open yard. I wasn't searching for anything in particular. I definitely wasn't looking for him. But then my eyes landed on him. Tied to a weathered, splintering post at the far edge of the yard stood the scruffiest, most unimpressive dog you could ever imagine. His coat was a messy brown and white, patchy and rough, looking as though he'd personally rolled through every single mud puddle in the entire county. His paws looked like they had never seen a pair of trimmers in his life, his overgrown nails clicking faintly against the hard dirt with every small movement. His ears were so floppy they drooped like tired, heavy curtains, swaying gently in the afternoon breeze. But his eyes, those deep, liquid brown eyes, held something I couldn't quite name. It was a mix of ancient wisdom, a profound sadness, and a story just waiting for the right person to tell it. It felt as if he were peering straight into the deepest parts of my soul, silently pleading for someone, anyone, to finally notice him. While sleek, powerful horses were sold off in mere seconds to enthusiastic ranchers, and while wagons and tools disappeared to eager bidders amid cheers and handshakes, that little dog just stood there. He was invisible to the crowd, looking as if he'd already accepted the heartbreaking reality that nobody wanted him. He didn't bark, he didn't whine, he just sat there, his tail barely twitching, resigned to whatever fate awaited him. In that moment, my heart clenched like a fist around a thorny rose. I looked at my dad, my eyes wide with an unspoken, desperate urgency. He read my face in an instant. That's the beautiful thing about dads who really know you. They can see right through the surface to your heart. He smiled that warm, knowing smile that already holds a yes inside it. "If you want him," he said quietly, his voice cutting through the loud auction din, "let's bring him home." And just like that, Charlie walked into my life. Or rather, he shuffled with a hesitant, cautious gait that hinted at years of neglect and loneliness. Now, let me tell you something about dogs that the movies always fail to show you. They can be stubborn. I'm talking Olympic-level, world-class stubbornness. Charlie would frequently stop dead in the middle of a trail, plant his paws as if they were professionally glued to the ground, and simply refuse to budge, his floppy ears perking up in a defiant display of willpower. He wouldn't move for treats, he wouldn't move for coaxing, and he wouldn't move for anything short of a literal miracle. One day, he'd gobble down carrots as if they were gourmet delicacies from a five-star kitchen. The very next day, he'd look at those same carrots as if I had offered him a bowl of poison, sniffing them disdainfully before turning his head away with a huff. Leading him anywhere felt like negotiating an international peace treaty with the world's most determined and unwavering diplomat. It was an endless back and forth of me pulling gently on the leash and him staring back at me with those unyielding, stubborn eyes. But here is the thing. Somewhere between the standoffs, the feeding battles, and the moments when I genuinely wanted to scream in frustration, something fundamental shifted. A bond began to form. It was quiet, unspoken, and eventually unbreakable. It started small, the way he'd lean the weight of his body against my leg during quiet evenings on the porch, or how his tail would wag just a little bit faster when I scratched that perfect spot behind those floppy ears. Eventually, he began to follow me around the yard without the need for a leash, his steps falling into a silent, synchronized rhythm with mine. One evening, as we sat together watching the sunset paint the Colorado sky in impossible colors, fiery oranges bleeding into deep, bruised purples, while the mountains were silhouetted like jagged teeth against the light, a wild thought struck me. "Dad," I said, trying to sound casual while my heart raced with a new kind of excitement, "what if Charlie and I went on a journey, like a real adventure, just the two of us exploring the trails and seeing exactly where they lead?" My dad let out that warm, rumbling laugh of his that always made me feel safe and grounded. "Emily, you and Charlie on an adventure? You better pack twice the amount of patience and at least 3 times the amount of snacks. He's got a stubborn streak wider than the Grand Canyon." But then his face grew serious and his eyes softened as he looked at me. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the best journeys are the ones we don't overthink. We stumble into them and they teach us everything we need to know. If this feels right in your heart, go for it. Just promise you'll be careful." So I began the meticulous process of preparation. I packed canvas bags to sling over my shoulder, filled with water bottles, dried fruit for energy, a worn journal for jotting down my wandering thoughts, and a cozy blanket for the cold nights under the stars. Of course, I also packed a pouch full of Charlie's favorites, like peanut butter biscuits, to bribe him through the inevitable tough spots. I had no maps, no GPS, and no rigid plan. It was an act of pure trust in the path ahead and in each other. The morning we finally departed, the sky blazed in shades of pink and gold, looking as though the universe itself were cheering us on. The early light cast long, dramatic shadows across our driveway. Charlie stood beside me, his ears twitching with curiosity, and for the first time, I swear he understood that something momentous was about to happen. His tail wagged with a tentative, hopeful enthusiasm I'd rarely seen before. We followed winding forest trails beneath towering pines that whispered secrets in the wind, their fallen needles carpeting the ground like a soft, fragrant blanket. We crossed meadows so full of vibrant lupins, Indian paintbrushes, and columbines that they looked like a masterpiece of spilled paint across the earth. It was a riot of colors that made me stop and just breathe it all in. We walked slowly, so incredibly slowly, because that is Charlie's speed. His paws padded deliberately over roots and rocks, and gradually the realization hit me that the slow pace was the entire point. Life doesn't always have to be a frantic rush to a destination. Sometimes the magic is found in the meander. On the second day, we reached a shallow river. Its water rushed fast over smooth stones, sparkling like 1,000 diamonds in the sunlight. Easy crossing, I thought to myself, rolling up my pants and testing the cool current with my toes. But Charlie had other plans. He stopped abruptly, planted his paws firmly on the muddy bank, and shook his head, his floppy ears flopping wildly. He was absolutely not moving. I tugged gently on the leash. I pleaded in my sweetest, most encouraging voice. I even tried to bargain with his favorite treats, waving them right under his nose. Nothing worked. Frustrated and exhausted, I collapsed on the riverbank, the damp grass soaking through my jeans as tears of irritation stung my eyes. As the sun climbed higher, I remembered my dad's words, patience and trust. So I waited. I sat there cross-legged watching dragonflies skim the surface of the water. An hour crawled by, then another, the constant murmur of the river becoming my only companion. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Charlie edged forward. One cautious paw tested the water, then another, his floppy ears alert for any sign of danger. Step by careful, calculated step, he crossed, splashing through with a newfound confidence. In that moment, I learned something profound. Sometimes progress isn't about pushing harder or forcing your will. It's about waiting, trusting, and letting things unfold in their own time. We celebrated on the other side with a shared snack, his tail wagging furiously as I showered him with praise. As the days unfolded, we met the most wonderful people, each encounter adding a new layer to our adventure. We met a family camping by a bubbling creek who shared fresh-baked bread that was still warm from their fire, the butter melting deliciously into the crust. They asked if their little boy could pet Charlie, and he accepted the attention with such a profound gentleness, looking as if he understood exactly how precious his new small friend was. Later, we stumbled upon an elderly woman rocking on her porch, her small cabin nestled deep in a grove of golden aspens. She told me she once owned a dog named Sam. "Dogs aren't stubborn, dear," she said, her eyes twinkling with a lifetime of memories as she offered